think that's actually why we have God there to help us understand what's going on in the spiritual world, because the whole idea is that we are in our bodies, which are limited. We're limited spiritually. That's why whichever way you want to go, whether you want to go more in the not in the godly, in the non-godly sense, or in the godly sense, there are steps you have to take. Like you talked about that stone, the Moldavite, I think stone it was. Again, that's something that you have to invest in. He has to find you. These are things that have to actually take place in order for you to gain off of the energy and the power that's behind that. So I kind of think that's the same with the it's kind of pulling off the eyes of the matrix. Even the consciousness, I believe it's the same thing. I believe that in these bodies that we're in, we're limited in what we can see and understand of what's going on in the spiritual realm as a whole. I do, however, think that when things are not from God, I think a lot of things, the Bible always talks about how the enemy is disguised as an angel of light. A lot of things sound really good and are actually really bad. It's exactly the same like you were saying about Christians, and some Christians coming across in a certain way, like, oh, and you're thinking, well, you seem like a bit of a hypocrite because you're saying you can't do this sin, but you're doing that. It's kind of the same thing in the spiritual world when it comes to the non-godly spirits, because they can also mimic and imitate things. and sometimes you don't know how those things are derailing your life, because there are things you don't know. And I think that's the thing about the spiritual realm, and why I believe in trust in God. And I feel like there's a need to trust in God, because when you're in the spiritual world, you don't know why someone's doing what they're doing. At the end of the day, you could get news. You could go to a psychic, and a psychic could tell you something, and it could sound amazing to you, as in they could say, oh, you've lost someone and whatever they could tell you, right? And it could seem like it all turned out for the good thing, but you don't know what the other thing that was potentially happening that they deterred you from. So for example, I'll give you a perfect example of this. It could be something like you go to a psychic one day because you feel like you've got a big decision to make at the moment, and the big decision is whether you should write a book or whether you should go for this audition at Broadway, in Broadway, right? Let's say that's the decision, and you're not sure which one to go for, because you want to do the Broadway thing, but let's say you feel like it's maybe a bit superficial, or you want to write the book thing, but then maybe it's not exactly what you want, but maybe it's like the better thing to do, and it'll be a self-help book. I don't know. And then you can go to a psychic, and a psychic could tell you, oh yeah, it's better for you. I feel like you're in between decisions right now, and the decision that you need to make, needs to be one that's not superficial, one that's about so and so and so and so and so and so. So you decide to make a book, not knowing that and that book might make you money as well. And this is the thing, the book might make you money, the book might make you successful. Maybe let's say you get 100,000 fans. But what you don't know is that if you had not taken that decision and you had gone with the other decision, which again could have been godly one, saying, well, actually, if you take that, it sounds superficial, but actually I'm going to give you a platform where you're going to be able to help hundreds of thousands of people change their lives, and you're going to be able to make even more wealth, then it makes sense to deter you off of that, because all of those other hundreds and thousands of people that were supposed to get you and get a particular version of you, and that would also driven you closer to God, that's no longer going to happen. So to you, it might not feel like you're being thrown off track, but actually you are. And I think that's a lot of the time how the non-godly spiritual world actually works. It's a lot of us thinking we understand things, but we don't actually know why things are happening. And because we're getting things that we understand, and that's why, again, even the Bible talks so much about trusting not in what we see, and what is to our visual eyes, because the world is it's very easy to deceive people. It's like magicians. Magicians, basically, majority of them, if they're not doing some kind of spiritual power, it's just sleight of hand, as they call it. And there's a lot of that, I feel, in the spiritual world, sleights of hand and things that are happening. And because things happen in a certain way, because we're susceptible as people, because we're built to have a spirit dwelling within us and to be in connection to spirituality, when things happen, we do notice, like you said about, things popping up like a stone and stuff, and how it will just fall out of nowhere, and how it helps with your anxiety and all these things. A lot of these things, I believe as well, they are very spiritual, they're very, very spiritual. So yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. And you also talked about the angel and demon on your shoulders, and you feel like it's not really a god, but maybe there is just these voices, and the voices are demons. I agree with you that the negative voices are demons. And again, for me, it goes back to why I think God gives specific rules in the Bible, because he's kind of like painting the picture to be like, I feel like he's painting the picture to let us know how to stop these things from gaining access to us. Like you were saying, you don't want to let people gain access to your energy. Well, for example, God might say that you watching like, for example, you just to use the music one. The music is low vibrational. The low vibrations, you're giving access to low vibrational energies to you by operating at a lower vibration. Do you know what I'm saying? And operating at high vibration, you're giving higher vibration energies access to act in your life. So in this case, I would say the lower vibrational energy would attract more of the type demonic type things in your life, doing things that are destructive for you. That's why so much of the music is talking about, you know, sex, drugs, all these things. A lot of things that are not really good. Well, I mean, sex is not bad, but you know what I mean? Like, the way they talk about them is not always is not a lot of the time the best way for you, but it's kind of indoctrinating that in you and putting those low vibrational energies in you and inviting those kinds of spirits and like forces into your life. Whereas when you're doing high vibrational things, you can also invite high vibrational things. And that's why I think, you know, like the angels and God come into it, and then they can actually be the ones to kind of not infiltrate into your life. But because the thing is, the difference between God and other spiritual forces, and this is what I think is scary, and it goes back to what I said about entropy, right? Because entropy, God, you have good and evil are the opposites of each other. So if entropy is things moving from a state of order to disorder, that's like you dropping a ball at the top of a hill. It easily rolls down the hill, right? Easily rolls down the hill. And it went from being ordered, static at the top of the hill to now rolling. It's in a state of disorder and it's rolling, it's going down the hill. It doesn't take any extra pressure for you to get that ball to roll down the hill. If you wanted to push the ball up the hill, that would take energy, and you have to make a choice to push that ball up the hill, right? And I think this is how it works in the spiritual world. When you have God is like the energy that helps you to get things back into a state of disorder, but it requires a force. It requires you having self-control, discipline, taking accountability, pushing stuff back up the hill. When you have the other spirits of the world, a lot of the time, I say this a lot, this is where you get why, you know, things like molestation and rape and all those things. This is why they're so prevalent in these other industries, because those are the fruits of the enemy. That is what the enemy does, because that's his nature. His nature is to infiltrate in your life without you asking. God is the opposite. God is like, well, you need to show me that you want me to be in your life, because I'm going to respect your free will. I'm consensual. That is God. God is very consensual. The enemy is like, well, I'm going to do whatever I want to do and cause a wreck in your life, because actually there are things you know you could be doing to stop me creating a wreck in your life. And if you're not stopping me from doing them, then I have the right to do them, as far as the law of entropy is concerned, because the universe is moving from a state of from order to disorder. And I along with entropy, I am the king of making things more disordered. And so that is what I'm going to do. So yeah, that's kind of how I would break that bit down as well. That's why I definitely believe it's more than just the voices. I believe it's very much, you know, God versus the enemy in that sense, and the good versus evil, order versus disorder, however you want to look at it. I really believe those are two forces, and the only two forces working against each other, fighting for your soul. Because at the end of the day, yes, when we die, we're going to go somewhere. And I don't think it's so much about necessarily like going to hell and going to heaven and like trying to live whatever. I think it's about the fact that this is just a matrix. This time that you spend on earth is not going to be that long. And you have time. The way I look at my life is like, I have time to come here and offer whatever I have to give, whatever God has given me to give this world. I will give it to the world while I'm here. And then one day I'm going to be gone. And I hope that I've left a legacy, something for my children, that they can continue, they can live better lives, and I can go and be happy. If there is an afterlife. And I think one of the biggest tricks of the enemy is removing the idea of the afterlife. But the reality is that we know actions have consequences in life. That's just a life principle. In the same way that you talk about your words have meaning, and how if you continue to say like, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, eventually you're going to believe you're beautiful, because you're putting that out there, you're putting that into your conscious, you're creating that reality. You're also creating that reality with people. What you do, consequences have actions. So anyway, actions have consequences, I mean. And you talked a bit about the Trump, his taxes, Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Cosby. Yeah, so when you talked about your awakening and how this all kind of happened around that, I found that particularly interesting, because I feel like, again, the media has been, it's like a double-edged sword. Because if you look at, especially talking about Trump now, if you want to talk about Trump, everybody had so many negatives to say about Trump, but look at the state of Joe. Look at the state of Joe. So at the same moment when they were bashing a whole group of people like Trump and making him look bad, and the likes of people like, you know, the Epsteins. I mean, Dan Schneider apparently is going back to work now anyway, in the production, in producing. Epstein killed himself. I mean, over here in the UK, and Prince Andrew's gone to basically hide hide with the Queen, because he can't be arrested with the Queen. So again, it's just proof that, to me, this is all proof that, you know, these are these are evil forces that are working. Do you know what I mean? To stop us from being able to see these things, from real justice happening. Because why are they showing so much about Trump, but they're not showing so many things about, you know, Joe and all this Hunter Biden stuff and what he had going on with the underage, like, Chinese women? That's all been swept under the rug. Hillary Clinton's emails have been swept under the rug, but then they want to make a big fuss about Trump's taxes. Like, why? Do you know what I mean? And then even you, I think, did a video talking about Black Lives Matter and why you no longer support it and why it's very demonic. Again, a lot of these things, they're like, it's like exactly as the Bible says, demons disguised as angels of light. Or another way the Bible describes them, wolves in sheep's clothing. Like, again, and this is why I believe that God is like, God, like somebody said this, and I so agree with this, that the Bible is a book of prevention and cures. That is what the Bible is a book of. Preventing yourself from coming to total disorder with your life, which, again, the enemy comes to what? Steal, kill, and destroy. Those are all forms of disorder. Stealing, killing, and destroying in your life. Stealing your happiness. Stealing people from you. Stealing whatever it is, your trust. Killing people around you. Killing your happiness. Killing you. Do you know what I mean? Killing others. Destroy. Ultimate destruction, chaos. That is the fulfillment of disorder, right? And so that's why I feel like... That's where I get that idea from. But yeah, yeah, and again, when you started to talk about spirituality and what you now believe, I think the interesting thing for that was that there is a lot of correlation with what you believe with what people in the world, with what you see as spirituality. I think a lot of that is actually what Christianity is supposed to be. Like when you talked about accountability, energy and frequency, you know, even this is why another thing, if you want to talk about things from the Bible, you know, people talk a lot about this whole no sex before marriage thing. But if you think about it, if we're looking at the Bible as a book of prevention and cures, that's like God saying to you, here's a way to prevent yourself from creating more disorder in your life, in your mind, in your body, with all sorts of other energies from that other person that you don't know about. Don't do that with them. And if you're going to be doing that with somebody, have a certain agreement and be in a certain place. Because if you think about the kinds of preparations people do to get married, a lot of the time people, you know, they go through marriage counseling. I mean, I'm looking at this from a Christian perspective. So you're kind of fixing yourself up as well. So you're not like just passing on any energies that you have. You're not just going to marry anyone again. So again, even just thinking of people from the lens of marriage, you're kind of assessing that person in a different kind of way than you would if you were just casually just, you know, having sex with them. So again, I believe that the energies thing is very much a big thing. You talked a lot about the being an empath and third eye. I think that, again, I believe that a lot of people are empaths a lot and are going through and have, like you said, they can have these other disorders and stuff as well. I think a lot of that is because a lot of those people have become empaths because a lot of the time you learn things the hard way. You know how it hurts to go through something. We know because we felt, right? A lot of people, and I'm definitely one of those people, I probably be considered an empath, like in the sense that I feel a lot for people and it's very easy for me to put myself in other people's shoes. But then I also think that being able to do that without a framework of knowing how to deal with that well, it can actually just put you in a state of being demonically managed. And I think that's what a lot of people now who are in psychiatric wards, a lot of these extreme mental health disorders, I think are kind of to do with that. It's kind of to do with the fact that people are, because genuinely people need help. And if you, I've not heard any story of anybody with any mental health, anything, who is just like, oh, if you looked at their life, there was no reason why they could not be 100% like in terms of their mental health. There's always things that add to that. But because we don't look at the spiritual roots of these things, we always focus on like the medical ones, and we try and use medical solutions. We're like we're prescribing people with antidepressants that where the symptoms, the side effects are suicidal thoughts. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? So again, for me as a Christian, I believe that if we as Christians were more walking in the power of Jesus as we're supposed to, and doing healings like I mentioned, and then I've seen people been healed. You know, I've seen healings. That's not something unknown of in church. Then people wouldn't be suffering with these things, and we wouldn't be having to turn to all this stuff and modern medicine, which is very behind itself. And let's be totally honest about modern medicine. Modern medicine is a business, and as I saw in a post the other day, a good health is literally the threat to the healthcare industry. Like, you being healthy is a threat to the healthcare industry, and that is how real it is. So again, a lot of these things, the evil powers of the world, they're working together. How can we kill off these people before their time? How can we make sure these people are plagued with being unhealthy, have low vibrations? Like basically it's all the path to destruction. It's all the path to destruction. That's again why I trust in God. And lastly, I think I'll finish here. I'll do last 2 more points. So you touched on the fact that we are all God. You think that we're all gods. I see where you say that. I don't agree with that, because I think only God is God, because God is good and none of us are good, because we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And we all know ourselves that at the end of the day, even if you think you're a good person, there's somebody out there that doesn't think you're a good person, because we're not all good all the time. Not going against anyone. I'm just being honest. That's just how it is. We're people. It's life. That's how it works, right? But I believe that God has imprinted things in us, that he has imprinted a power within us that is not in, and that's why there's a differentiation between human beings and animals. This is also why I don't believe in evolution, because I believe we're a separate entity, that God did give the tools, certain tools, for us to be able to use, to be able to, if we choose to, tap into the spiritual world. Now, he has his ways. Again, he gave us free choice, free will, so we can always choose which side we want to go, whether we want to go down his route, whether we want to go down the route of the world and, the enemy. It's up to us at the end of the day. So I definitely believe in that. And so I believe he gives us the power, the power of God. It's like, and the Bible even says about Jesus, if you abide in me and I in you, as in the spirit that he left, he leaves us the Holy Spirit that abides in us. In essence, we have God inside of us in that sense. So I can see where you might say that, but I personally don't believe that we are gods, because I think God's, God, to me, the word God, if you're going to be a God, you got to be a good thing. You got to be a good thing. There's got to be no bad about you. And genuinely, us as people, we have bad things about us. We're not trusted. Like I said, the Old Testament proved that even whatever we do, whether God is involved or not, if it's just totally based on us making our own decisions, ultimately we will always make the wrong decisions for ourselves and others. And just to finish off, I'll finish off where you said spirituality is a process. And I think that's absolutely true for Christianity as well. I think the problem for a lot of us Christians is people kind of look at us and go, because you now say you're a Christian, we expect you to follow ABCD 3,100 rules perfectly overnight. It's not like that. It's like being Christian, you make that decision. You're making that decision every single day to try and be better than you were the last day. And I think that's what a lot of people would see spirituality as. It's a process. You're dealing with different things and you're going through the motions. And I think because people have tried to paint Christianity as a picture where, like, as soon as you call yourself a Christian, you look like this perfect thing and everything about you is perfect. I get why that message has been lost. But the Bible, and this is why the Bible says again, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. You've already got salvation. It makes clear that we've got salvation when you receive Jesus, but you still work it out with what? With fear and trembling. And the point of that is, don't get comfortable thinking that you haven't got things to deal with about you just because now you're in the faith. And that's why I also believe, Christianity is a process, and it's unfortunate that a lot of Christians have not really painted that picture as far as that. But yes, I didn't really talk about the chakra thing, but again, it kind of just goes more into the whole demon thing. You got two sides of it. Like I said, you got the good, you got the evil. They kind of operate, they can operate things. The enemy can make things happen. That's why Hollywood is where it is, with all the flipping Hollyweirds back there doing all disgusting things, because the things that they are doing are showing their sacrifice and are showing their allegiance and their agreement with evil powers, in the same way that as Christians, the things that we're supposed to do is to show our agreement with the good powers and the spirit and the godly type powers. And that's just a game that people play, and the further you go with that, the more that you see in the Bible, the further that people went with God, the greater signs and wonders you saw of them, the greater wealth they had in this world. It works the same. But the thing with God is that you don't have, like how in movies, and they always say this even on Disney, that magic comes with a price. That's when you're on the evil side, and the price a lot of the time is somebody's life. Again, enemy comes to kill, steal and destroy. Or in this case, it could be that secretly behind doors people are being molested, like you mentioned. That's the price to be paid. Because if you were doing that in a good way, you wouldn't be doing it with those evil forces. You'd be doing it with God. And then you're doing things with God, and that's how you know God, because God tells you the fruits of what he's doing. You're not going to discover that behind closed doors so-and-so is going on. If you are discovering that, that means God wasn't there. And I think that's kind of what gets missed sometimes, is that we think, people say things in the name of God, and then we put those things on God, and it's like, no, it wasn't God. It was the person. And actually, if you look at how God explained to you, and the Bible talks a lot about, and I always encourage people, if you're not a Christian, look at what the Bible says as to how to assess if somebody is of the faith that is spoken about in the Bible. And as soon as you look at that, as soon as you look at what the fruits of the Spirit are, as soon as you look at how the Bible describes love, you quickly realize that a lot of those people are not following those things, and therefore they're not following that religion, therefore they're not following that God. And I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching the video. Troyce, if you did watch this video, I just want you to know, massive fan. I just thought I'd unpack a lot of this stuff for you from a different perspective, because you seem like somebody who knows stuff and who wants to know stuff and who would want to have, even if you're happy with where you're at, you might want to have the additional information, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to offer you the opportunity to maybe drop some other food for thought in there, maybe answer some of the questions you did have, even though, like you said, you're good with where you are now. And yeah, for anybody else that kind of wanted to, I hope that this benefited you. Please like the video if you did like it. Please comment if you agree, if you disagree, if I've changed any of your thoughts. I'd love to especially hear from you. If I've said anything to you in a way that maybe you haven't heard it before, please subscribe. I'll appreciate it, of course. I'm fairly new on here, but I'm just here doing what I want to do, doing what I feel like God is calling me to do, and kind of just trying to a lot of what I feel like I want to do is just debunking a lot of misconceptions people have about Christianity, because I think it's a great thing to have in your life. God is a great thing to have in your life, and unfortunately God has been ruined for a lot of people by other people, and I just kind of want to be another voice to give another perspective, and also to actually address things that people want addressing that a lot of people in the church are not addressing. But anyways, thank you so much for watching my video. Please check out my other videos, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.